Good day, buddy fighters. For today's video, we are going to have another deck profile featuring Dungeon World's BladeWing Phoenix deck. Now, this deck is one of the best offensive decks in the Dungeon World because of the immortalized Wings of Divinity BladeWing Phoenix abilities. So, let's get into it. First up, of course, as usual, we have the monster. First, we have the immortalized Wing of Divinity, BladeWing Phoenix. It has a call cost of put an adventurer and a dungeon enemy from your field into its soul and pay 2 gauge. At the start of your attack phase, if an adventurer and another dungeon enemy are on your field, draw 2 cards, and for this turn, this card gets quadruple attack. Its another ability is when this card attacks, you gain 1 life and deal 1 damage to your opponent. It has an ability of move, penetrate, soul guard, and counter attack. So technically this is your main monster for the deck. Imagine the quadruple attack and the gain 1 life and the deal 1 damage to your opponent 4 times each turn. Now that is one offensive monster. Next, we have the BladeWing Phoenix Revival Buddy. Its call cost is pay 1 gauge and put the top card of your deck into its soul. It has an ability of counter. Act during your turn. Call this card from your hand on top of an adventurer or a dungeon enemy monster on your field without paying its call cost. Another counter act. During your turn, you may put an adventurer and a dungeon enemy each from your drop zone onto the bottom of your deck in any order. If you do, put the top 2 cards of your deck into your gauge, draw a card, and for this turn, this card gets power plus 15,000 and quadruple attack. You may only use this ability once per turn. It has an ability of move, penetrate, and soul guard. So imagine right after you attacked with the immortalized Wings of Divinity BladeWing Phoenix, you call this card on top of that one. So it's another offensive attack. So that will get you a total of 8 attacks for the turn. So this is one of the finishers of the dungeon or the BladeWing Phoenix deck. Next, we have Assassin Godspeed Criticizing Kirwa. It has an ability of when this card enters the field, you may drop a hand card. If you do, put up to 1 size 2 dungeon enemy or dungeon enemy item from your deck into your hand and shuffle your deck. It also has an ability of counter act. If this card is in the soul of your dungeon enemy, you may pay 1 gauge. If you do stand that card, you may only use this ability once per turn. So Assassin Godspeed Kirwa is used to search for BladeWing Phoenix or the item of the deck. No? It is a support card or a search card for your main monster. Next, we have... oh, this one's cute. Next, we have Corgi Cobalt. It has the call cost of pay 1 life. When this card enters the field from your hand, call up to size 1 adventurer with 4,000 power from your deck by paying its call cost and shuffle your deck. At the end of the battle that the adventurer or dungeon enemy with this card in its soul attacked, destroy up to 1 card on your opponent's field. So technically, Corgi is used to be on the soul of the BladeWing Phoenix. But it can also search up Kirwa. If you don't have Phoenix in your hand, you can search Kirwa using Corgi Cobalt and then use Kirwa to search for the BladeWing Phoenix or the item. Next, we have White Silvergate Warrior Quenzue. Ability: when this card enters the field, put the top card of your deck into the gauge. Then if a dungeon enemy is on your field, put the top 2 cards of your deck into your gauge. Next ability: when a dungeon enemy monster on your field attacks alone, it attacks your opponent and all their monsters instead. Now this is the partner of the BladeWing Phoenix on the field. If your BladeWing Phoenix is on the right, you may call this one on the left. It is a great enhancer because it can enhance the quadruple attack. It attacks your opponent directly as well as your opponent's monsters. So this one is a literal buff for your offensive moves. Next, we have the elusive clown Ranma. It has a call cost. Put a card from your drop zone into its soul and pay 1 gauge. If this card on the field, your opponent cannot gain life. Another ability, Counteract. Choose a card in your opponent's field and you may drop an adventurer or dimension dragon from your hand. If you do, destroy the chosen card. If your flag is Lost World, put the chosen card into the drop zone instead. You may only use this ability once per turn. Also, it has an ability, Soul Guard. So this is another. So if your opponent is more of a control deck or more of an offensive deck, this one is also a good card to control your opponent's battlefield. So imagine your opponent cannot gain life, as well as you may put. Yes. Okay. Choose a card in your opponent's field. You may drop an adventurer from your hand if you do destroy the card. It also has a destroy ability to any card on your opponent's field. Right? Next, we have Mysterious Fortune Stellar Sophia. Pay 1 gauge, nullify all abilities of your opponent's monster that is in battle with this card. This ability cannot be nullified. Protection. Next, it has an ability called Protection of Astreus. When this card enters the field, you may drop a hand card. If you do search your deck for up to 1 spell with set, put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. Protection of Astreus only activates once per turn. So actually the dungeon deck or the BladeWing Phoenix deck also has a set spell. So that's the one that you need to get using the Teller Sophia. But actually, the set spell also enhances your resources. So this is a good card for you to enhance your resources during the battle. Next, we have Weaver of Dream and Faith Miko. If an item would leave your field, you may put this card from the field into the drop zone. If you do, that card remains on the field. It also has another ability called Counteract. If you are being attacked, you may put this card from your drop zone onto the bottom of your deck. Pay 1 gauge if you do nullify the attack and you gain 3 life. So this one is a protection to your item as well as protection towards attacks as well. So Weaver of Dream Faith Miko can actually be an essential card during your opponent's turn. Next and last monster, we have Zeta Skeleton. At the start of your attack phase, if an adventurer is on your field, for this turn, this card gets Penetrate and Double Attack. Also, ability Counteract. During each player's attack phase, choose a size 1 adventurer in your drop zone, and you may put this card from the field into the drop zone. If you do, call the chosen card by paying its call cost. So you may call Zeta Skeleton first, and if you have Kirwa on, or no, not Kirwa, actually Quenzway. If you have Quenzway on your drop zone, you may actually call Quenzway using this card. Imagine it has a Penetrate and Double Attack, and then you have Quenzway on your drop zone, so it's another plus or boost on your offensive attack. So that is all the monsters for the Dungeon BladeWing Phoenix deck. Next up, of course, we have the item. The item for the BladeWing Phoenix deck is the Staff of Polarization Kaleidobane. It has an equip cost of pay 1 gauge and put the top card of your deck into its soul. Now, first ability, if an adventure monster is on your field, this card and all monsters on your field cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects and get power plus 6,000. Another ability, if a dungeon enemy monster is on your field, this card and all monsters on your field cannot be returned to hand by your opponent's card effects and get defense plus 6,000. It has double attack and soul guard. So it's actually a defensive and boost item, because apparently all the monsters, even this card, cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects and cannot be returned to hand by your opponent's card effects as well. And of course, a boost to your power and defense. Again, all monsters. Alright? So that is for the item of the BladeWing Phoenix. Now let's proceed to the spells of the BladeWing Phoenix deck. First up, we have a set spell. The set spell is Mission Card Party Form Set. When another card with mission and its card name is set on your field, you gain 1 life. Choose an adventurer from your deck and put it into your hand. Shuffle your deck and put this card into the drop zone. Now this is it looks for an adventurer on your deck, so you may actually search for Kirwa. If you don't have BladeWing Phoenix on your hand, you may actually search Kirwa using this card, and then you search BladeWing Phoenix using Kirwa. So this is one of the a must set spell for the BladeWing Phoenix deck. Now, the next one is another set spell. It's the Mission Card Quest Start. When your opponent takes damage, put up to 1 card from the top of your deck into this card's soul face down. At the end of your turn, if this card has 3 or more face down souls, put this card on the field to the drop zone. If you do, gain 3 life, draw 3 cards, and deal 3 damage to your opponent. You may only set 1 mission card quest start on your field. So it's actually a good enhancer. The mission card quest start, right after 3 turns, you will get a great boost on your life, hand cards, and you may actually deal 3 damage to your opponents. Now, for the next card, we have Bonus Quest Re-S. Now, it has a cast cost of a monster from your hand, or drop a monster from your hand. It has its ability is put the top 2 cards of your deck into the gauge. You gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. Then, if the card dropped by this card's cast cost is size 2 or greater, draw a card. If the cards dropped by this card's cast cost is size 1 or less, put the top card of your deck into the gauge and you gain 1 life. So no matter, it has a boost if you dropped a certain size of a monster. Now, if you need an additional hand card, you gotta drop a size 2 or greater card. Or if you need gauge or life, just drop a size 1 or less card. So this one works well with BladeWing Phoenix because the monster is only placed around size 2 and size 1. So technically you can use both effects if you are needed to. Next, we have another resource card. It's Friends Connect. You may only cast this card if an adventurer or dungeon enemy is on your field. Now that is a daring need for you to cast Friends Connect. You need those 2 cards. You need an adventurer or dungeon enemy for you to cast this spell. It has a cast cost of 1 gauge. Now, the ability is draw 2 cards. Then if an adventurer and dungeon enemy are on your field, draw a card. Technically, it has draw 3 effect. So if you have then adventurer or dungeon enemy, or you have both, you automatically draw 3 cards. Alright? Next, we have Bonus Quest. Bonus Quest cast cost is drop a size 2 or greater monster from your hand. Put the top 2 cards of your deck into your gauge. You gain 1 life and draw 2 cards. You may only cast bonus quests once per turn. This is another good resource card actually. It can literally boost your hand cards because of bonus quests. Next, we have Iris Lilac. You may only cast this card during your turn. Cast cost, drop a soul from a card on your field. Counter, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put up to 1 among them into your hand, put the rest into the gauge. Now, the good thing with this card, it has counter, so technically you can use this during your attack phase as well as your final phase. Alright? Next, we have, most of this are, we still have 1 resource card left. We have Unfreezing. It has a cast cost of pay 1 life. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put 1 from among them into your hand, and put the rest into the bottom of your deck in any order. You may only cast Unfreezing once per turn. Another resource card to begin with. Now, we only have all the counters left. So first off, we have the Divine Protection of Shalsana. Ries. This card cannot be nullified. Counter, choose and use one of the following 2. You may only cast Divine Protection of Shalsana Res once per turn. For this turn, the next damage you take from attacks becomes 0, and the next damage you take from your opponent's card effects becomes 0. Next is draw a card, and for this turn, all cards on your field cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Get power plus 10,000 and critical plus 1. So this card can be a defense card or an offensive card as well. Now, the normal Divine Protection of Shalsana that we know is actually a nullify attack card, but this time around, because of the revival spell, it has a boost during your offense or during your attack phase as well. Next, we have Insanity Chevre. You may only cast this card during an attack on your opponent's turn, and if you have 2 or more monsters on your field. Counter, nullify the attack, then choose an attacking card, and for this turn, the chosen card cannot stand. So if your opponent has a lot of a restand like double attack, triple attack, quadruple attack, once that card attacked, it cannot stand anymore after that one attack. So Insanity Chevre is one of the best cards in the Dungeon World. It's one of the staple cards actually of Dungeon World. Now, if you can see, Dungeon World has a lot of staple cards that you can use with on many different archetypes. So it's somewhat like Magic World, wherein lots of spells can be used not just in one archetype, but you can use it in different decks as well, such as this BladeWing Phoenix. You can use it during the Dungeon Nights, the Adventures, tons of it. Like Gummy Slime deck. Who would have thought there's a Gummy Slime deck? But yeah, that's for another day to feature. So this one is Gummy Slime Shield. You may only cast this card during an attack on your opponent's turn. Cast cost, put a monster from your drop zone onto the bottom of your deck. Counter, nullify the attack. Then if an adventurer is on your field, put the top card of your deck into the gauge, you gain 1 life, and if a dungeon enemy is on your field, draw a card, and this card cannot be nullified. Now, for an unknown card, this one, uncommon card, for an uncommon card, this one is actually a good card to begin with. So it's one of a great defense and a resource card at the same time. That's why we opt to have 4 copies of that one in the deck, because of how good it is. Next, we have Glory Burst. Cast cost of 1 life. Choose and use one of the following 2. You may only cast Glory Burst once per turn. Put up to 1 card with mission and its card name from your deck into your hand and shuffle your deck. Counter, call a night monster from your drop zone by paying its call costs. Now this is actually an enhance during your attack phase. Normally I use it during the attack phase to call a night monster from your drop zone, by paying its call cost. Like for example, I will be calling the skeleton guy Zeta Skeleton because it is a knight. Or no, it's an undead. But there is a knight on the field, but I also use it for the mission card. Mostly I use it for the mission to get the set spell. So I could have a good resource card, especially the one with gain 3 life, draw 3 cards, and deal 3 damage to your opponent. That is the use of Glory Burst. Of course, going down to the generic cards, of course, we have generic cards in the deck. First up, the overused and the overrated Buddy Block. I don't see any deck that doesn't have any Buddy Block anymore. So apparently, this one is staple in all decks. Like, literally all decks. Except for Zwei. Oh no, apparently all decks, actually. Now it has a cast cost of pay 1 gauge, counter, choose and use one of the following 2. For this turn, the next damage you take is reduced by 3. If your opponent's cards attack 4 times or more during this turn, for this turn you will not take damage from attacks. It's the second ability. So normally people use Body Block for the second ability, wherein your opponent cannot attack after the 4th time. Because let's be honest, most of the deck right now are leaning for multiple attacks to end your opponent. So Body Block is a good option for that one. Lastly, we have the Grace Sun Deity. Counter, choose and use one of the following 2. For this turn, you cannot take damage by your opponent's card effects. Choose a card on your field, and for this turn, the chosen card cannot be destroyed or leave the field, and its soul cannot be dropped or returned to deck by your opponent's card effects. Now, Grace and Deity is actually used for its first ability, wherein for this turn, you cannot take damage by your opponent's card effects. Because a lot of decks right now relies on damage by card effects. So we have Mystic Knights, Athora, Shadow Shades for that one, and many more actually. Many more decks that relies on the effect damage. So this is a good counter for those cards. So that is all the spell of the BladeWing Phoenix deck. Now that is all for today's deck profile. I hope you enjoyed learning about the BladeWing Phoenix deck. Comment down below at the comment section of what deck do you want us to do a profile next, because apparently we have a lot of decks that's still in store and we haven't really had the chance to give you guys our build for every deck that we use on our channel. So if you guys are curious about the build of our decks, just comment down below in the comment section what do you want to know for the next review. We actually have a lot of meta decks. So if you wanna see how we are building our decks for our fights, just comment down below so we can do that one next. Thank you everyone and have a great day ahead.